All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. We have Nadeem back, very special guest. Welcome to the podcast, Nadeem.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone.
Now, what we're going to do in this episode, you've seen the title, but what we're going to do is I wanted to do an episode where we break down herbicides and really talk deep about them from a contractor's perspective so you guys can understand exactly what you need to know to have successful applications. I think there's a lot of information out there that people could know. Some of it's completely irrelevant, some of it's surface level, and if you really want to understand this, you've got to do what I've done in the past, which is download multiple hundreds of pages of information and sift through it, usually agriculturally inclined information, and try and get as much from it as you possibly can. And it takes forever. It's taken me forever. That's how I've learnt my stuff over the years. But I thought, you know what? Why don't we get Nadeem, who is who runs Colin Campbell Chemicals, and get him to help us understand how do herbicides work? How do they actually kill the weeds? What are the groups? What are the resistance problems you have? Understanding timing, understanding how weather can affect your different sprays. Surfactants. Why do some herbicides seem to burn? Others seem to have a slower but more effective kill. How do you get through the really tough weeds? How do you communicate with clients? All that sort of stuff. And so we've got a lot of preparation into this, a lot of time in this, and hopefully it's a really, really helpful podcast. Welcome, Nadeem.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Great to be here. It's like hopefully I can shed some information. There's a lot out there, as you said, but to be honest, those books are the best resources. I've got plenty of them, and I definitely say, yeah, I've got a actually, let me just, yeah. Please don't confuse your Google search with my turf qualifications. So when I look at that, it's like for the listeners, it's more so going Google. Google searches are good, but books are still very, very relevant, and you'll find very detailed information and peer-reviewed information as well.
I think with what this can be, because I don't think you can possibly cover every single thing you could cover in a single podcast. We're going to try and stick to the most used, most popular, most relevant podcasts for our group of listeners here. So we're going to be talking about your lawn rows, your sort of bow and arrow spearhead groups, Roxula MCPA herbicides, Spartan, other pre-emergents. So we're going to try and stay within that. And I think that we can do so that's really deep compared to what most people are going to listen to on the internet. Maybe those who are more curious, they can reach out and get the even deeper sources that you've got, and obviously your podcast as well. Maybe you give that a bit of a shout out because you have a lot of deep information on that.
Yeah, it's called Behind the Turf Podcast. It's one where I interview a lot of university professors from mostly the US who are way smarter than me. Way smarter than both of us combined. But the great thing is they're good friends of mine, and we talk about different issues affecting turf management. It is a lot more probably slightly golf focused, but there's a lot of relevant information there to the listeners. Yeah, Behind the Turf, got on all the usual platforms and the likes like that. I don't have as many listeners as yourself, Luke, but I think someone listens to it.
Well, mate, the reason why you don't have that many listeners is it's so deep that only a few people who are going to be interested in that subject. But the people who are interested in it is perfect, absolutely perfect. And that's what the internet's great for, is you don't have to have mass-produced interest. You can focus in. So very, very nerdy. But let's start with the first question. The first question is right off the bat. How the heck is it possible for there to be some herbicides that can kill a weed, a broadleaf weed, or even a grass weed, and not damage turf? I know that's a huge scientific question I'm asking, but to simplify it down for people, how is that even possible to start with?
Yeah, it's the genetics of the plant. That's what it really sort of comes down to. And some chemicals are engineered to target certain aspects of, say, a weed, a broadleaf weed or a grass weed, to attack it that way, where it doesn't tend to do that on the grass. That's probably the best way to put it. So that's how it is. However, always one of the herbicides, one of the things I do say, no matter what herbicide we say, things are safe on this type of lawn, things are safe on couch, things are safe on zoysia. they are safe up that rate. It's when you start to go over and beyond that rate where it may not necessarily be safe. Obviously, the environmental factors that we'll talk about as well. But one of the things I always say, it's like going, yep, the rate is there for a reason. And generally when we're doing trial work, we are doing double rates and 4 times rates just to see what happens. And some products are fine at double rates, don't hurt. But when you go for registration, the aim is to get the lowest possible rate with the statistically significant control. So what that means is like going lowest rate, it works and it works well in comparison to an established product. So they both might get, like, you never get 100% control of anything. So you might get 95% of the standard product. Then you're doing a trial that gets 90%. 5% doesn't sound like much, which is, or might sound like a lot, but statistically it may not be relevant. But as long as it works, it's safe, and it's much better than any untreated, we can get it registered. So yeah, it's that lowest rate, because in the end, it's like, we only want to put out minimum amount of chemical out there in the environment. We don't need to go out and put 3-4 times rates out there as happened before, and mistakes do happen, but generally speaking, we don't want to see that.
Well, so if I'm summarising this idea, basically the chemicals are engineered to work on we'll look at this a little bit deeper soon, like exactly how they work, but maybe there's an enzyme or a aspect of a certain plant that isn't in another plant.
Yes. Yeah.
And it will work on that. But what you're pointing out is that's only at the lowest rate. I guess you can just burn the heck out of the product. And you could do this with fertilizer or something that's encouraging to grow the plant, or supposed to be very healthy for the plant, but you still put that at a too high a rate and it will burn the plant.
Yeah.
So I guess that mechanism doesn't mean that it's perfectly safe in every single scenario.
No, exactly. So there's always a lot of caution there. That's why I always say, follow the label, what's on there. And if you're not sure, ring the manufacturer. They're always happy to help.
Now, what I'm going to do as well, we are going to turn this podcast into an article. And I'm going to have that link in the description so that you guys can have a look at some photos, you can have a look at some pictures and things like that. I want to show something here because one of the things that I am still slowly learning, but I found super, super helpful, is when you understand exactly how the herbicides work, their mode of action, or even just a sort of surface level understanding of it, it really helps take your game to the next level, because they don't all work the same way. There's different numbers on there, like the groups that they're in. It helps with resistance, but also helps people identify after a herbicide has been sprayed whether or not it's actually starting to have an effect or not. Am I thinking about this the right way?
Yeah, definitely. Because some products you spray on that you don't see any result for 2-3 weeks. Other ones you'll see results within a couple of days and go, what's happened? Well, other times you spray the same product in different times of the year and going, hey, this worked really quickly. Oh, awesome product. Then the next time you spray, going, nothing's happening. It killed that weed in 3 days last time. It's still here 2 weeks later. So there's so many different factors, and that's what I hope the listeners can get out of this conversation.
And this is one of the number one problems that I get with clients. You spray a product and a week later, they don't know what to look for. So they just look and the weeds are not dead, right? Yeah. They're still green. And they go, well, this is spray work. And then you end up getting called out to the site to have a look at it again. And once you have the knowledge, you can, solve these problems just by looking at it. But if you don't know that, then you go, oh, do I have to apply again? And maybe I'm wasting product, or maybe you feel like a certain product is bad because it took a while for it to work, but it actually is working better. It's just slower than the other ones. You probably get a lot of this, especially with a product like Lonro, which is a little bit slower.
Yeah, the amount, we get quite a few calls in Lonro, and if anyone who's listening here has called up our office, it's like they pretty much give them my number, or I take the call and have a chat to them. So it's me who you're talking to. It's not someone else there. We don't have a chatbot or anything to talk to you, or AI. So it's me talking, and Lonro is a great example because it's so slow in working. But the thing is that that's so slow. It takes a long time to work, but it does more of a complete kill. So with Lonro, especially for onion weed, it's like it is a low rate. And people put it on and I say, look, you're not really going to see any result for another 3 to 4 weeks. You may have to do a backup spray, but generally speaking, the one application, as long as timed right, the weather conditions were good when you applied it, and going forward you did everything right, it'll just disappear. that's the other thing. So if you're out there doing some contracting sprays of lawns, make sure the expectation of not just yourself but your client, that they know what to expect. That it won't things won't happen straight away. Give it time. You know what? And take pictures. That's the other thing. Take pictures beforehand of their lawn, and this is great for a client just to have over a time period about the work and the quality of work that you do. Because the other side is going, we can go. They might be saying about, hey, this you still got these weeds here, or this isn't looking as good as it was. But then it's like, because everyone has short-term memories. But take some pictures, file it somewhere, upload on Dropbox, OneDrive, those type of things, and then show it, or you can send to the client going, hey, look, this is when we first started, what it looked like, and here it is now 3 months later. Oh, by the way, we sprayed lawn row, a month ago, and then guess what? This is what it looks like now. You're saying, it hasn't worked, but the weeds are pretty much dying. There's a lot less of them, because a lot of the times, what the weeds will do, they won't you won't see them burn off. You'll see them just shrivel up, or you might not even see that. But the desirable grass, the cooch, the buffalo, the zoysia might just start creeping over. So the weed's still dying, but it's just going to die and just and the debris will just end up going to the thatch layer. So think of it from that point of view.
Let's not get too nerdy now. We will in a second. But just an overarching view, you told me on the phone before that some, I wrote these notes down, some herbicides do more of a leaf burn and some do more of a systemic kill. And sometimes, is it the active ingredient that's doing that, the actual way it kills, or is it a cheap versus expensive formulation? But basically, just because it's burnt doesn't actually mean it's working quite that well.
No, that's right. A great example is like sort of we talk about ester formulations, more so the guys in Victoria. Generally speaking, the guys around the rest of Australia don't sort of need to worry about this. In Victoria, there are laws in certain areas called ester exclusion zones. So certain products in their ester formulation may not be able to be used in those areas. So some products. And I'm talking like bromoxynil is an ester formulation. There's an MCPA ester formulation and a non-ester formulation. So those ester formulations tend to work. They're a bit more volatile, not volatile in a bad way, but volatile in that they will work on contact and just work on a burn of the weeds, but it won't tend to draw down to actually get in the full root system. So you'll see results pretty quickly. You go, oh, great, that's killed it. But that complete kill isn't there. And that's why a lot of the times with those products, you have more than one active ingredient to do the heavy lifting at the end to try to do that complete kill. The other one, if you're sort of a sports field operator and you've got your Schedule 7 license, we won't talk about it too much, but DSMA and MSMA. MSMA is very popular up in Queensland in sports fields because it just works and it just burns everything. But you get burn on cooch, but you get the recovery quite quickly just due to the weather conditions, where everywhere else tends to be more DSMA used because it'll work slower. It's got a slower action and you won't tend to get as much of a burn there. There is quite a bit of a price difference there with the products, but there's a reason for both products at the same time.
Right, small business owners, we've got to be honest. Like, we need to be honest in this conversation right now. A lot of you are really average or even terrible at admin, getting back to clients, replying quickly, getting through those people who are emailing you. And I can understand it. I've been there. You're on the tools. You're working in the rain. You're working in the hot days. You're struggling to get through everything. And then someone calls that email and you just hate the idea of replying to it. The way to solve that issue, there's a couple, but the first step to solving that issue is to have an admin system, a dedicated admin system. If you're running off Google Calendar and your email, you're going to miss opportunities. It's going to cost you money. It's going to take you a long time. I did a full podcast with my wife, who runs the admin side of Silverstone Gardening. She's 8 months pregnant in this podcast, right? And she's got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She stays at home. She looks after them. They don't go to daycare. And if you're going, that is insane. She's running multiple staff. How does she do that? We did a podcast on that. And the big point is that we're using a software system called SortScape. We love it so much that we went to SortScape and we said, hey, can you do a deal? Help the people out and sponsor the podcast. And I said, yes, we'd love to. So we have an exclusive deal. You can get SortScape off SortScape with the first month for free. That's a discount that you get. And I highly recommend that you sign up to it now. It's winter. This is a time that you have an awesome opportunity to improve your business before the hot weather comes, before the craziness happens, before you run off your feet. Improve those systems so that you're way better at managing your business. Again, full podcast. Listen to that. I've got a link in the description and a free first month for SortScape. Again, link is in the description. Can I just repeat this? Please, for your own sake, go do something about your admin this winter. Well, I mean, two points here. You just brought up price. I'm just going to say this very quickly. Most of our contractors who are listening to this are not spraying large areas, and so the price kind of gets irrelevant. Yeah. Because if you have a product, say I've got an empty pack of Lonro here, which is one of my, this is one of the things we're going to get into. I think more contractors need to be getting this product out. A lot of people will buy, say, a product that is, let's say Stadium, for example. Yeah. And it might be, I haven't looked at the prices for a while, but it might be $200 for 10 litres or $250 or something like that. I guess that's probably roughly the price range. And then they look at a Lonro and they go, well, it's $200 for 100 grams. But they don't realise that, one, this 100 grams goes a lot farther than the per gram than the other options. But when you're looking at it per application, it's still very cheap because it's small areas. When you're doing a golf course size, okay, then a huge increase in cost is huge because you're covering so much area. But this is where I think this all ties in, because some people will go get what might be a cheaper herbicide, say, something from Bunnings, for example. Yeah. And bin dye was an option that was used a lot. Bromoxynil MCPA, if you're not aware, people, that's changed due to some laws changing around scheduling of the chemical. But a lot of people, and I was included in this, would go and buy this, and because it had a bromoxynil in it, it knocked it so fast. Yeah. But I didn't realise that was just that superficial burning that you're talking about. And I would use that on clients' properties. And I can remember I had a lot of problem with Burmetic, which was a weed that seemed to grow over the top of the ones next to it. It looks like a clover or an oxalis, if you guys don't know what it is, but Google it. And we'd get a really quick burn, but then it would come back. And I would always have to do 2 applications with this. And when I was less experienced, I didn't realise that exactly what you're talking about is the issue. Yeah. And so that's something in your arsenal, contractors. If you are going to go do a spray job for a client, right, you may be able to communicate to them, hey, the thing we're putting down, it does take a while. It's got a good formulation. It just takes its time and it properly kills it. Some other ones might burn, but you get a good result in a short period of time visually, but the real result isn't there. It's going to come back.
No, that's it. The slower the better in that way. And the other side, I think you hit the nail on the head before in terms of the cost. So obviously, Lonro, per hectare is more expensive than, say, a Stadium is. However, as you said, they're doing those small areas. And when I look at lawn contractors spraying and the likes, it's not the cost of the chemical that's the expensive part. It's your time. That's the thing. That's the time, the labour, your knowledge. That's the biggest thing. So even though it's like going, Lonro, per 100 square metres is quite cheap, and you might find other products which are slightly cheaper, but those couple of dollars, it doesn't really matter where if you can get that complete kill first up and say to the client going, hey, you know what, I'm using a better, higher quality product, we're going to go out, but expect it to take a little bit longer. You will see some weeds dying before other weeds, but all the other weeds will die. And this is what it's going to cost rather than, and then say, well, we can use this other product, but we might have to come in again and do it. So then they're thinking, well, you know what, it's going to probably cost them double the amount. Where something like Lonro, even if there's a bit of escape afterwards, and we can talk about some mixing and likes like that, but I think we were talking the other day about even if there is a bit of, because you're going back to these lawns quite on a regular basis, I'm assuming that a lot of the contractors out there they've got their clients, regular clients, are going to do different jobs all the time. Oh, we're going to do a fertilizer today. We're going to do some other sprays, or even if you're mowing, we're going to do a mow. But if a little bit of weed comes up, going, what's it take to fill up the little knapsack and just go and knapsack a couple of areas just for your client going that. It's like, I think I told you about the story of the pest controller that I use. I had an ant problem and he came in and sprayed the place, and he said to me, Nadine, if any ants come back up, let me know. I'll just come out and redo it, no cost. I did have an ant problem in a certain area. He came in, literally 5 minutes, he was done and dusted. Didn't charge me at all, but because he good quality, everything else that he did worked. But ants are always difficult to get rid of. They are in lawns as well. But he did it, came back, and I've used him ever since. It's that value. It's not, price doesn't always come into it. If price always came into it as going, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Simple as that. We'd be selling the cheapest product that we've got, and that's all we'd be selling.
Well, I think from a contractor's perspective, and you're obviously someone who makes the chemicals and sells the chemicals, and you would say this too, but then people go, oh, well, of course you'd say that.
Yeah.
But the way that I look at it from a contractor's perspective is you should be charging good money for this, that the product doesn't make a difference. In our area, the minimum spray job that I found on any other business is $110.
Yeah.
And that could be for a 15 square metre front lawn. Now, when we used to do once-off sprays, we had that as our minimum. Now, we would also, for some of our regular clients, we might bring that minimum down to, say, $70 if it's somebody who's getting a lot of mowing with us.
Yep.
But that's still $70 for a job that might take us 10 minutes.
Yep.
And so, for me, I want to buy the best product I can that will solve the problems that I'm having, rather than buying the cheapest product that's going to get a quick burn. And I have in the past been really, I've gone down the path of getting the quickest burn or the quickest result because the type of clients that I was doing it for wanted that result. And I didn't explain this process because I didn't know it. And I regret that now, not in a big way, but it's not the way that I would do it now. Now, give me the best products I can. I will charge for that. I will get a good result. And then when that happens, yeah, like the client's happy, they get me back, everything goes well, just like you said with your ant guy.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll give you one example. I know I don't want to talk about it too much. It's like, but Polycure, it's like, it's like, it's the most expensive herbicide on the market. Simple as that. However, I've got a couple of home lawn guys using it, and we don't tend to push it in that side because I tell people straight away the price, and I go, well, look at other products. But this person who bought it, he goes, my client's got a winter grass problem. They've got resistance. They're not getting control of any other thing. They're a high-end client. I need to look after them. I do look after them. And I told him the price. He goes, no, my client will accept that, because it's like going, yes, I'm going to charge you more than I normally would for a spray, but he sees the value in it because having that weed-free lawn, I dare say it's probably one of those corporate executive clients that has to entertain, and he needs everything immaculate. So there is room for that, and that's just sort of the high-end side of things. But it just goes to show you this person invested in Polycure, again, as I said, not cheap, but his client, yep, no problems, we'll do that. It's going to work. Let's do it that way. And you see it in your day-to-day personal life as well. There are certain things that you will pay more for that someone else wouldn't, because you are seeing the value in it, and it's giving you from a personal point of view, probably satisfaction there. And you do that with lawns with clients. Like how good is it when you see after you've done a job? And that's a great thing about the industry. It's like, you've done a job, you see the result, the fruit of your labour, and you go, happy with that. Your client's going to be happy with that at the same time.
All right. How important is it to understand how these weed sprays work? I found it helpful, but do you think it's that helpful?
Definitely it is, because then it's like, as you were said to earlier on about communicating to your clients about what's doing, what's happening, but also for yourself understanding. You don't need to know all the ins and outs of it, but it's more so in going that, oh, yep, I know it's working. Oh, yeah, okay, that's that. Okay, oh, they're starting to curl up. Oh, okay, that's the MCPA doing that. Great. Or wait a minute, the lawn's gone a bit white. Why has it gone a bit white? You go, what have I done? Is it a burn or what? It's like, well, no, it's just that, and we'll go into it, the diflufenican from the bow and arrow or the spearhead or the stadium.
Well, okay, let me tell you the story. We've just taken over a private school, and there was a lot of weeds. The previous contractor, they did a spray, and the facility manager said, well, apparently the previous contractor's done a spray. Now, they weren't very happy with the previous contractor in certain areas, so he was suspicious. And I went out onto the oval, and I could see, no, he has done a spray, because I can see the curling. And I'm going to put something on the screen now, because this should help. When we will go through, I've made a little bit of a document here. We're going to go through for you how I can't do two things at once. I can't share a screen and talk. I'm trying, I'm going to show you the mode of action, people. And so on the screen here, you can see there are, I've got a document. Now, this will be in the article that we write. So there'll be a link in the description, and you can go through and have a look at this. But I'm going to scroll down to what I've been talking about here. This is a photo from a university website, and they can see here, the photo above shows leaf cupping of soybean damage. Now, this is a crop that they didn't want damaged, but this shows the same sort of effect. And it's a result of improper dicamba herbicide application. Now, dicamba, if we look up here, is in the same group as MCPA, clopyralid, 2,4-D, and these are very common, and they're found in things like spearhead, bow and arrow, cutlass, casper, all that sort of stuff. Any thoughts on this as I'm speaking about this?
Yeah, no, and that grouping is very, very effective. And on that soybean piece, just so people's like, soybeans are a huge market in the US. It's one of the biggest ag crops there is. But yeah, it's like it can cause damage, and that's where it's off-target damage. Whether it's been damaged through overspray or double rates or anything along those lines, we don't know. But yeah, you do get that curling. It is a nightmare. It starts to curl up and starts to die off that way. But they're short-lived. They don't have great residual or anything like that. But they do work very good in doing a decent kill. So all by themselves, and that's why you see on a lot of especially broadleaf herbicide mixes, you don't tend to see just one active ingredient in the tank because they all play a different part. And dicamba has always been good on more your waxy, hairy surface weeds, grown on oxalis, and that's one of the things, capeweed and cudweed and the likes. That's the thing with dicamba. It's an awesome active ingredient. It's a good one there, but having it with other active ingredients, it's going to increase the broad spectrum, because a lot of these ones that you do look at, you might see a list and go, wow, this does 20 different weeds. Yes, it might as a standalone product, but how well does it do each weed? That's the variability of it.
So when you have a mix, let's take there's a whole host of products, but one of the most common ones out there is the bow and arrow that people like to talk about. There's problems with this we're going to get through soon that a lot of people, let's just say this is why we're doing this. If you go on a lawn care group, say like Lawn Fanatics or WA Lawn X or something, and someone recommends a herbicide, they're going to recommend a couple of common ones and they will work. But this is why we're trying to dig in a little bit deeper, because when you're a contractor, you don't have to go with one. You can have an arsenal. You can afford to have 6 or 7 going around. But when you have, say, MCPA, right, MCPA and clopyralid in the same group, right? It's the same mode of action here. Now, they are both in that bow and arrow mix. There's also diflufenicin. Yeah. And what you're saying is, why would you bother? If they're in the same group and they work the same way, why would you bother mixing them in? But what you're saying is, well, MCPA might be really effective on certain types of broadleaf weeds, and clopyralid might cover them too, but it may not be as effective, whereas clopyralid might be the others. And you've got ones, I think you've got a MCPA 2,4-D dicamba mix, don't you?
Yeah, well, it's actually Mecaprop. So we've got our methotricombi, which is Mecaprop 2,4-D dicamba, and then the Sports Ground, which is MCPA, Mecaprop, and dicamba. So they're quite sort of unique that way. 2,4-D, it's not one that's common in a lot of the lawn stuff. You won't see it out there, but in our methotricombi, it's there. It's an awesome herbicide. It actually acts as a bit of a. It's a hormone. It actually acts as a bit of an activator for other herbicides. So it helps draw other products in and get a better kill that way. It's great in terms of that. And MCPA is just a standard sort of broad. And as I said before, with the MCPA, there's ester and non-ester formulation versions of it, but it's a great just general broad spectrum one. And the Mecaprop as well in that group, it just does a lot of different broadleaf weeds very well. But mix them all together, that's where you really get the result of them. But the dicamba in our tricombi, and even in it's in Casper, that's where sort of the oxalis control comes from. Like if you try to put like oxalis, like the other herbicides will sort of do it, but it's a dicamba in that grouping that really does the oxalis. Like in bow and arrow and stadium, that it's a diflufenicin that does the oxalis. It does it really well. But it's like that's why if you just did the bromoxyl and MCPA, you may not get a great result on oxalis, and that is one of the hardest to kill broadleaf weeds out there because of that waxy, hairy surf, and that's where we can get into with definitely using different surfactants and that with it as well.
Well, we'll talk about it soon, but let's just wrap up this group 4. We'll go through all the groups, but this is probably, I would say this is the most common in all broadleaf herbicides, right? And it causes uncontrolled growth, and what you see is that sort of cupping, a twisting and a curling, and it's really quite quick, and it is visible, and that happens before the plant goes yellow. And so most of the herbicides you're using, you're going to be able to see that. And if a client's like, hey, I'm not seeing anything, well, you can say, hey, this should happen after maybe 4 or 5 days. You should see some curling, maybe even like sometimes I've seen it the next day. You can start to notice some of it. And that is super helpful for people. Anything else we should know about that before we move on to we'll go to the group 2 herbicides next.
Yeah, and I guess a good example is like, the bow and arrow, the stadium and the likes, where you've got that MCPA doing that and the chlorpyrrolide doing that, and then the diflufenican sort of takes over at the end and has pre-emergent properties as well. So that's why you get, like you said on the label, it's like, seeding, if you not so much a lawn contract guide, but if you do need a seed, especially sports field guys, you got to wait 6 weeks because there is that residual there from the diflufenican there. So that's why that product does tend to work quite well.
We'll talk about diflufenican a little bit more. Or do you want to talk about it right now? Do you want to get into it right now?
Yeah, we can talk about it because it's one.
So let me scroll down to the pictures that I have. That's not it, is it? No, that's bromoxynil. This is the one. Diflufenican has this very noticeable bleaching effect, right?
Yes, and it's a lot more. It bleaches on a lot of different desirable species as well. Obviously, your cooches, your kikes, and everything like that. So it will do it on all of it. It's short-lived, but it definitely will do it. So obviously, if people are using a product, well, with something like Stadium or Bow and Arrow or Spearhead out there for their client, give them that warning that, hey, you might see a bit of bleaching. Part of it's going to be from the weed dying, which is good, but the other side, it might go on the bit of the kikuyu. Don't worry about that. It will grow out. It won't be long. A lot of the times, you'll just cut it out. You put a bit of fertilizer with it as well, with the spray, just to alleviate. I won't say it won't eliminate it, but it will reduce it.
I've seen this most commonly when I've seen it on buffalo, but I found it when the temperatures may be a little bit too hot, a little bit too cold. There's something where the plant's not quite happy, not quite healthy.
Yeah.
And especially when someone's been a little bit careless with how much they're applying. And so that they've gone and they've just gone, this is about right.
Yep.
And they're over-applying, and that little bit too much diflufenican will have quite a negative effect on your species. I've not seen them really on cooch, I don't think, but definitely on kikuyu and buffalo.
Yeah, kikuyu and buffalo more. So I've seen a little bit on cooch, but generally, kikuyu and buffalo. And the other thing is you've got to remember the amount of diflufenican that's in that formulation is very low. So if you do go over that rate, I think like our old stature product, it had 25 gram per litre of diflufenican in it. So if you were by chance going, the top rate, which is 2 litres, so you're putting 50 grams, 50 grams a hectare. But even if you went then to 75 gram, going, oh wait, I did a bit of an overspray, going, you're going to see more of an effect where something with a higher load amount, and you put on another 10 or 20% more, you could get some damage, but not like you would out of something that's quite low. Because you're putting on, not 10, 20%, you're putting on 30, 40% extra because it's such a low amount.
So when you've sprayed with diflufenican, and if you were spraying with the bow and arrow, stadium, spearhead, those grouping of chemicals, you will see the curling from the MCPA chlorpyralid, you'll see the cupping, and you'll see a bleaching on the weed.
Yes.
And that will happen before the weed's dead. And that is, it's telltale sign if you see either of those two things. And what will happen is once you know that, and now you do, you can go to a site. If you see a weed that is got those symptoms, you know which product it's been sprayed with, because I don't know if there's any others out there that combine diflufenicum with those groups that are commonly used on, because Stature, like you said, had it, but you've discontinued that, which is a shame.
Because of the scheduling 7, going to the schedule 7, it was a great product. Its biggest strength was like those hard to kill weeds. The worst part, it wasn't the best on clover. That's why we mix it with Lonro to make it work really well. But with going to a schedule 7, it's like we want to eliminate as many schedule 7s as possible, and they are restricted to licensed operators and certain areas, and a lot of councils won't go anywhere near any schedule 7. A lot of schools won't go anywhere near them, so it's like that's all right. And we had our truck combi coming back anyway at Sports Ground and the Lonro.
That's I highly recommend most people listening to this don't use schedule 7, because you really just don't need to. No. There might be some benefits where maybe you get a slightly quicker kill, or you can knock multiple targets out in one application, for some of these sprays, rather than mixing multiple things together in one tank. But I'm not sure if there's anything common that can't be killed with a schedule 6 or even a schedule 5.
No, that's it. The hardest thing is with your grassweeds, your passepartum and the likes like that, and that's where you have the David Gray's product, the DSMA and the MCPA. And the reason behind that, it's only a Schedule 6, is because it's got such a low amount of DSMA in its concentrate. So you just got to remember, one of the things the listeners got to remember, that when the products are scheduled, and when you look at the safety data sheet, it's information on the concentrate product, not when you're putting it out. So it's not like you're putting out Stadium and Spearhead and all them are like 5 litres a hectare, but the safety data sheet and everything refers to in the bottle, not out there after you sprayed it. Because once you dilute it, the safety of that, if you've got that dilution, you're not putting much in there, so it becomes a lot less hazard, a lot safer product from that point of view.
So let's continue with noticing things that are dying, or how to look at them. I've just scrolled past bromoxynil. Now, bromoxynil is not a product that, like we say, it's just been rescheduled, so people aren't using it too much, but it does create that sort of burn, wilting sort of effect. But let's go up to Group 2. Now, Group 2, they used to be called Group B. That's what I remember it as. That's all changed, so we've got to refer to Group 2. There's a lot of products that are in this group. A whole heap of them are in this group. It is
huge. Just a bit of little bit of background information. Back in the 90s, there was an explosion of this group, of how many different active ingredients there are within this group. And the resistance side, actually back in the sort of the 70s, they were invented, in the 90s, saw a huge increase in resistance to this grouping. And it's still getting worse and worse and worse. And we see it for turf and lawns, we see it for winter grass control. That's where the resistance is. And in ag side, it's ryegrass, because all these products are great on ryegrass, but there is resistant ryegrass everywhere, and wild radish is the other one. They're the two most resistant weeds out there. So but these are the claim to fame with these products is that they were super effective at super low rates. That's the thing. It's like, you got Lonro 150 gram a hectare at most. You look at Monuments 300 mil a hectare at most. So really, really low rates. Even Tribute's only 2.5 litres, but that's a very low concentrate. So you've got ultra low rates, and the safety aspect. That's the other thing on the desirable species, on your cooches and zoysias, and sometimes a buffalo. But if it wasn't safe on something, it really killed it. Or the other thing, actually, I will say that if you are using these products, make sure you clean out your spray equipment very, very well. And I don't mean just with water. If you can invest in a tank cleaner, they're pretty cheap, the tank cleaners as well, and you don't use that much. There's one called All Clear DS. I think there's one called Tank Clean or something. Turf Culture's got it. But definitely use them, because what can happen with these, it's what happened early on with these products, was that people would finish them up, clean out their tanks just with water, and then they'd go in the next time, put in whatever, and then go and spray a lawn. Say, for instance, they'd do a cooch lawn, and then they go do a buffalo area, and it's like going, wait a minute, I've just killed some buffalo. This is like a couple of weeks after, going, what's happened with the buffalo here? What it is like there's a little bit of residual of that those Group 2 products in the tank, and I mean a little bit, doesn't have to be too much, and it's like going, yep, and it's gone out onto an area that you don't need it to go out, and it's just killed it. So put on a tank cleaner and give it a good clean out. Obviously, if you're doing multiple of the same type of lawns, you can understand it, but at the end, give it a good clean out. And you want to keep your sprayer going as well, so you've got to look at cleaning nozzles and the likes on a regular basis as well.
Well, let's talk now about the symptoms. One of the symptoms that I've noticed is this reddening, and I've noticed this on some of the ryegrass that I've tried to spray out in the past, that there is a little, you've got to look for it sometimes, but there is a little bit of a red tinge to some of the new growth. Is there other things that we can look for to if we've sprayed with this, because it is slow, so having it be having a way of understanding how to look for it is really helpful with certain clients, especially ones who are really quite picky. Oh, well, we just had a couple of technical difficulties, but we're talking about Group 2, a little bit of brown, red sort of tinge there. What other signs am I looking for certain weeds with this group?
Yeah, so it's all different. Depends on how the weed, sees it. Like usually when you're doing it for winter grass, it'll turn yellow. They'll start to turn yellow and sort of die off and then go brown and then just shrivel up. So, and a lot of the times, as I said, with this group, guys, you'll see the lawn start to come over, the cooch come over, the buffalo come over, and just choke the weed out as well. So that's the other side that actually does help with weed control. It's like the actual desirable species. Like if you've got that, healthy and growing, it's going to start smothering out. So the weed's going to get less. It'll still take up water, still take up nutrients, but it's going to get less sunlight, won't be able to efficiently work. So it'll just end up dying. So that's what, and then the desirable species will end up choking it out. But then obviously, if it isn't fully dead and the herbicide, the residual's gone out of it, you'll see it come back, and you go, wait a minute, didn't I kill that weed before? It's like, yes, but that's a stronger one. Or if you've got resistance with this class of chemistry, and you'll see one dead weed, one weed that's just totally glowing. And it's like, why is that? I sprayed these exactly the same way. It's like, one's possibly got resistance there.
So this is where, like we said before, this group is very prone to have resistance. And this is why knowing the mode of actions is really good. Because if I was to say, let's say I'm targeting some ryegrass with Lonro, and that doesn't work, so I move on to Tribute, I'm likely to get the same problem, maybe not guaranteed, but you taught me through this. But this is where knowing your actives is going to make a difference.
No, definitely. So, if you're utilising, say, Lonro, then you go on to Tribute, and then you go on to Coliseum or Negate, anything like that, you're just throwing the same thing at the same problem. There is differences. There is slight differences, however, between some of the chemistries on how they work on the plant sort of subgroups, and just the best way to look at it is like going, some will sort of work, say, up here, others will, they'll all work the same way to kill the actual weed. Some will work here, some will work here, the other one will work here. However, it's like they're still the same mode of action. So once you've got resistance to this, you're going to have resistance to this. It's sometimes, however, that I know, I was talking to Jim Brosnan at University of Tennessee. He said to me, people are using Tribute, and then they're going on to something and getting resistance to it. Then they switch on to something like Coliseum, and they see it actually working better than Tribute, which generally speaking shouldn't, because it's the same mode of action. But it just goes into it, as he said, it's like a lock and key. He sort of does go into the lock and turns the key slightly separately to the other one, but he's still got resistance. Simple as that. So that's it's not a strategy there. If you keep on spraying the same herbicide and not getting the result, it's not going to it's not going to do much. One thing where if you're going Lonro and Tribute, but at times where you can mix Lonro and Tribute for ryegrass control, because Lonro is better on ryegrass than Tribute is, but Lonro is useless on crow's foot grass, where Tribute's awesome on crow's foot grass. So then you get the differences between the spectrum of the weeds, between the different active ingredients. A lot different to the group 4 herbicides we were talking about, that they all pretty much do the similar weeds. Some are just better than others. But with this grouping, they can be very different. You got Monument that does sedges, Lonro, Tribute don't really touch sedges there. Tribute does some broadleaf weeds, but Lonro does so much better on broadleaf weeds. So that's where sometimes mixing both of them, and I think there is might be a recommendation on the Tribute label about mixing it with iodosulfur on the active ingredient of Lonro for ryegrass control, because there has been some work done there.
Well, we've brushed over something here, which is that these herbicides not just tackle, say, broadleaf. So the group 4 we talked about before with the MCPA and those very common ones, they may only be getting broadleafs. They're not getting any of the grass weeds that you're going to get. No. Whereas these are hitting both. And this is one of the reasons why I think that contractors need to get a bit more of a variety in there than just what you're getting on the surface level of these groups that are talking about things, is because people, and I was there, I remember many years ago, I went to a client's property and they had some grass weeds and I said, you can't spray that out. This is something that we have to hand pull. And they didn't like our quote, so we didn't hand pull them out. But then about maybe 4 years later, I was like, oh my goodness, I know I could have been spraying that stuff out, because there are products to do that and people don't realize that. And Lonro is a great, we're talking about ryegrass. Guildford grass is the main one here. Yes. Some people would call that onion grass, although they're technically slightly different things. But that's, you right now, there's Guildford grass galore, all in the area that I'm in, and that will also hit the broadleaf weeds. And that's when you start going, okay, well, that is a better choice for that right then and there. Whereas if you have a resistance, you may want to get a different one. And this is where you start building an arsenal of products, and you don't need that many. But being wise about it means that you're so much more helpful. And then when it comes to charging and charging correctly, you're the better option. If you go to someone's property and you're quoting $200, but you know what you're talking about, someone else quotes 150, but they sound pretty shaky on it all, you're going to win the job, maybe 6 or 7 times out of 10, because people in that scenario are not caring about price. They're caring about the information you give and the quality that you're going to give and all that sort of stuff. And that's what we're trying to help you with here. No. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. It's like, and then you've got to look at the label with the rates on product. Like for Lonro, Guildford grass onion weed, 25, 50 gram a hectare, that's all you need. But for broadleaf weed control, then go, you need 100 grams. For ryegrass and wintergrass control, you need 150 gram rate. So I've had a lot of calls about Lonro, and people go, oh, you're getting it for onion weed, going, you got broadleaf weed? Yeah, we've got some clover. Got some clover in there. So okay, you can use Lonro. Just go a higher rate. Oh, does it work? Yeah, it's on label. Actually works really well on broadleaf weeds. I said you don't need another broadleaf herbicide, especially for your home lawn guys going. Then they'd have to spend more money. But from a contractor point of view, going, you know what? This product has become much more valuable to me, because the other side of it is going. Then you can always look at tank mixing different products as well. We can talk about that, because there is definitely advantages to tank mixing different modes of action, different herbicides together. But generally speaking, then it's like going, you know what? Rather than doing just an onion weed spray, it's like you're talking about onion grass, Guildford grass, going, hey, I'm going to go and do the onion, your Guildford grass, but what about your broadleaf weeds? Have you done anything about that? No. It's like, well, I'm going to do that at the same time for you. What's the price? No, the same price. Because again, going there for 25 gram to 100 gram per 100 square meters, it's minuscule. It's a
$2,
$1,
something like that. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So it's not much at all. So, but you do it. It's you're offering that value to the client. And especially if you are charged, if there's like a $200 job, that's not that's good money if you get, and it doesn't take that long. But you've got the know-how to do it. You've got all the qualifications to go out and do the sprays as well. That's the other thing. So people are paying for your qualifications, and people are paying for your knowledge as well. So that's the best way to get business.
So on these mode of actions.
Yep.
So I guess sort of group 2, group 4 are the ones that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But if I scroll down here, we've also got group 3. I haven't got any pictures of how it works, because these are pre-emergent groups.
Yeah.
And this is mostly about post-emergent, but it's just really just a quick note. If you're using Prodiamine in Barricade or Spartan as a pre-emergent, and then you're hitting anything that pops through, or maybe you're a little bit late with your application or some things that are already there, with any of the products that we've talked about, whether that be the bow and arrows or the sports grounds or whatever it is, the lawn rows, they are using a different active ingredient. And then again, you're hopefully, I mean, it is technically possible for weeds to be resistant to multiple modes of action, definitely. But you should hopefully be covering some bases there that you are actually doing it almost accidentally, because a lot of people don't realise this, but they actually are tackling with multiple modes of action and doing so in a professional way.
No, definitely. And the pre-emergents are, they're a game changer. I remember when I first came to the industry, there wasn't a huge amount of pre-emergents used. Now it's just, you just have to do it. Whether it's in a sports field, golf course, lawn contracting place, it's a service that you just have to offer. The one thing I will say about the pre-emergents is they all are very good. Some will do quite severe root pruning as well. So this is not just safety on different grasses, this is root pruning. So they tend to shear the roots at the bottom, so you've got to watch out for that. The biggest one that does it is sort of pendimethalin. Barricade prodiamine does it as well, but pendimethalin's always been more so. That'll do it. Ronstar, or I know the common one is Oxifert. You can get Oxifirt's the one with the fertilizer. Ronstar is the original one from MView there. That doesn't do any type of root pruning, those type of things. And the other things with pre-emergent, just remember, it's a pre-emergent. It does not stop anything that's germinated. So the biggest thing, important thing about this, and I'll go on a bit of a side note as well. I had a conversation with someone in regards to pre-emergence. So one of the things is like going, here's your pre-emergent layer. You've got a weed that's already there. The pre-emergent will do absolutely zero to it. Absolutely nothing. There is obviously the only one that sort of does some post-emergent is Dimension, the dithiopyr, and Spectacle. They're the only two that do have some post-emergent with, and Propimazide, which is Breck out there. That will do some post-emergent, but generally they're just going to be great pre-emergents. But you do have to obviously get them on beforehand before anything germinates. So the latest poll research is showing that, because people will see it's like going, they'll put down a pre-emergent, a couple of weeks later there'll be a bunch of wintergrass come up. Wait a minute, I put my pre-emergent down. Yes, but what it was, the wintergrass had already emerged. It was just laying dormant, and the conditions were right for it to just grow. So you'll see that. The other thing now this is when it sort of gets we're going to get a bit too nerdy, get too technical here. I had a conversation with a gentleman who's got a ryegrass lawn and been doing pre-emergent. However, he's finding, and I have seen this in golf courses, where the wintergrass is germinating in the thatch. So his thatch is up here, the pre-emergent layer is down here, and he's going, the pre-emergent isn't working. It's working, it's just not placed correctly. Well, he has placed it correctly because he's followed the instructions. He's watered it in like the 10, 12 mil that it needs. However, it's like he's watering it too far down, but the power's germinating here, and we're seeing that more and more. So that's where doing a pre-emergent with a post-emergent is now common practice everywhere, because won't stop that breakthrough coming up. It'll just reduce it. And the great thing about the pre and the post together is a lot of products you do not need to water in that same day. I always say this though, if you're just doing a pre-emergent, water it in as soon as you can. Don't wait. Don't wait for rainfall. Just get the irrigation on, get it done, get your client to water it in, and hopefully they have an irrigation system. However, if you are doing a pre and post together, some products, yes, like you can wait longer than, you can wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. I think Barricade's 5, 7 days, Barricade's Spartan, 5 to 7 days. I think Spectacle's 21 days.
Gee.
Up to 21 days I've got now on the label. But just have a look at the label. But if you don't need to wait, water it in. Everything you do, that comes with other products as well. Going, if you need to water, we'll talk fungicides another time, but that's one thing you definitely do not leave on the. If you need to water in for spring dead spot, you don't leave it on the leaf and water in later on. You do it straight away because they bind so well. The herbicides are a little bit different. They don't bind to the planters in the organic matter as much. So but definitely water those products in. So but pre-emergents are great tools, and they can last up to 6 months. Not always, but they can last up to 6 months for say Spartan and Barricade. Spectacle can nearly last 12 months. It has in some situations, depending on the soils and the weather and everything like that.
So I'm going to take this bit off the screen now, because I think if we're going to recap everything we've just talked about so far in this podcast, the first thing is that some herbicides, they will burn, some work systemically. Some mode of actions are better on certain weeds than others. Some active ingredients are better on certain weeds than others. And so having a too simplistic an approach is probably okay if you're doing one every now and then. But if you're really wanting to go down this path and really deliver a high quality, having an arsenal of options is really good. Now, let's say you've got an arsenal of options, and you've got a stadium, you've got a sports ground, you've got a lawn row, you've got a pre-emergent, maybe something for some sedges, sedge hammer or something like that. Yeah. Okay, we've got our arsenal created, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you're still going to have success, because some people, they get their timing wrong or they get the weather wrong, things like that. So what are the most common issues you're seeing when it comes to bad timing? And let's just start on that, bad timing.
So bad timing in terms of, say, the weather. One of the most common things is, I sprayed, it was 18 degrees. Where are you located? You've had 18 degrees a day you sprayed. However, it started to become in the high 20s 3-4 days later. That's why you got to burn. So this happens with those group 4 herbicides quite a bit, what we were saying with the MCPA, Megaprop, dicamba. Mm-hmm. So with those, whenever you're spraying, and it says, there'll be some things on the label, like our Endothal says, do not spray when it's above 25 degrees. So all your broadleaf herbicides and Endothal, don't spray when it's above 25 degrees. But don't just look at the day of application, look forward 7 days. Because what will happen is the herbicide will start working, and then if the plant if it gets warm, gets under stress, you're going to get a burn that way. So don't just look at the day of application, look forward as well with the weather. The other side of it in the cold weather, so frost can also damages turf anyway, damages grass, but having a herbicide on, especially with those group 4s, you are going to damage the lawn that way. So you'll get great results on everything and actually accelerate everything to kill everything quicker. But any of those herbicides I mentioned, you have a frost and you get the frost burn, and you'll get damage on it. And especially in the winter time, if you are going to get damage from frost, you can't repair it that quickly. You probably have to put pigment over to mask it, but realistically, it's going to be a long-term thing. That's why the other thing is when it comes also to timing is spray when the weeds are actively growing, because they've got to take it up. So generally speaking, around Australia, the weeds are going to be growing all year, not all year round, but most weeds that you get up are going to grow all year round. We don't go under snow or anything like that. So that's one thing I'd caveat. When you look at stuff in the US, a lot of areas do go under snow and they go dormant, they go fully dormant. We get dormant areas here, and everyone, I always say, has a dormancy period. But that dormancy to, say, far north Queensland tropical weather is very different to Western Australia to Sydney, what dormancy, or in the Highlands and the dormancy. But you do get some sort of dormancy. So you want the weed to be actively growing. You want your turf to be healthy as well. So this is the other thing to look for. So the younger the weed, number one, the younger the weed, the easier it is it's going to kill. And this is especially for your grass weeds, any type of, like your winter grass, your crow's foot, your summer grass, your paspalum. The younger you can spray them, the earlier you can spray them, go in and do it. So don't wait, don't look at it like, sometimes broadleaf weeds just like going, don't really get them until about September, October. I'll wait till then. But then they'll tend to jump up in April, May, June. So go in and spray early. And a lot of research has shown you spray it early, you're not going to have as much broadleaf weed come up in springtime, because you've done that early and you've got that lawn coverage good, where it's just fighting out the weeds naturally as it is. So it's look at it from that point of view. The healthier you can keep your turf, the more you can keep it growing, the better it's going to be. So that timing, very much do it as the younger they are, the better you're going to get the result. The other side also, and this happens with all herbicides, is the moisture. So when you get bad results on herbicides, it's like you can actually, if you go through a dry period, like the guys, if anyone right now in Melbourne as we're recording this, they've just been drying through drought. You're going to go spray weeds out now, you're not going to get as a good result, unless obviously it's under good irrigation and the likes like that. But generally speaking, the lower the soil moisture content, the less efficacy you're going to get out of the herbicide. And this is any herbicide. So when we say moisture content, you don't need it to be flooded or anything like that. That's I'll go into that just a little bit afterwards. But in terms of the dryness, you still need, obviously you need the moisture there for your lawn to grow. You also need the plant to uptake, need to be growing so it uptakes a herbicide, draws it in and dies that way. So if it has been dry and you got to do a herbicide spray for a client and they've got an irrigation system on in there, get them to water beforehand, get them leading up to the spray, get them to go, hey, look, we're going to do some spraying, but I've noticed it's a little bit dry, your lawn. Can you put the irrigation on a couple of days before we come, give it a good water, and give it a good water about a week beforehand anyway? And they go, oh, it's winter. Well, just give it a water, even because you can get drought stress in winter time as well. We have seen that. It just doesn't show up like a summer one. But then the opposite side is when it was too wet. So when it's too wet, the plant is starved of oxygen. You get a waterlogged situation. Don't go and spray going, okay, yeah, it's rained, I'll go out and spray, or I'm due to spray this guy's lawn. I haven't had time, I better do it now. It's even though it's wet and muddy, don't go spray. You're going to go into trouble there, again, with any product. So you don't want it waterlogged. So, and you'll know when it's waterlogged. You'll see the puddles there, you'll step on and go, yeah, do not go and spray. Wait till it dries out. There is a lot of information on labels say do not spray if heavy rainfall is expected within 72 hours or the first waterlogged. So give it 3 to 5 days, just depending on how the weather comes out. And that it's like, in Sydney, like we've been getting actually finally some sunshine here, but we've been like Queensland where there hasn't been much sunlight, just been wet, no sunlight. So any herbicides gone out. I have seen actually damage and heard a bit of damage with some broadleaf herbicides. Actually with our Tricombi I've heard. And it's like going, wait till it dries out and then go in. But now we've actually got frost at the moment, starting in the western part of Sydney, so I'd be very wary of that.
Okay, so there's a lot there, but if I'm simplifying it, too hot, problems.
Yes.
Down at the frost sort of temperature range, maybe even sort of close to that, probably getting some problems too. Too much rain or too dry, you're going to have problems. Now, that means that it's probably actually makes a lot of sense to be applying in that sort of late autumn phase, because usually you're probably not having that many problems. And one thing you talked about, I want to circle back to this. A lot of people will start getting their sort of March, April, they'll see some weeds pop up and they don't spray them. And then they wait till they're big. And this is what you said was they wait till they're big and then the weeds are larger, healthier, and you can end up needing to do multiple sprays. And I just want to reiterate this because either way you're doing multiple sprays. Because this is the problem, the reason why people don't want to do it is they will apply early and they go, well, if I apply too early, I'm going to have to do a second spray later. Well, if you apply too late, you're going to have to do a second spray anyway. But the one that's applying too late, you have weeds for the whole several months that you're waiting. And so apply early, be optimistic, try your luck, and maybe you'll get hardly anything pop up later on, and you'll be happy for it.
No, that's it, because a lot of the weeds will take up a lot of the nutrients in the soil. So the cooch, the zoysia or the buffalo it's not available to it. So that's the other thing, it's fighting that way. So it's starting to outcompete the lawn. So this way, it's like going, well, you know what, the weeds are dead, so it's not going to have that fight. The other thing, wind. That's the other thing. So if you get cold, dry winds, hot, dry winds, that can do the same as well. So watch out for the wind, because it just sucks the moisture out of the whole place, and then the herbicide will just it can burn. Again, look at the 5 to 7 day forward if that's happening, and this, and then there's your perfect argument for pre-emergent herbicides, having them in the system at least. And you know what, I've put a pre-emergent on there, it's going to help me stop more weeds from coming up. So it's a great argument for that, because if you've done your spray and then go, I haven't been able to get on, 2-3 months we've been having bad winds, bad weather, can't do anything, there's a heap of weeds now. But if you went 2-3 months beforehand with a pre-emergent, yes, you're going to have to probably go in later on. But the thing is, you know what, that's pretty clean. My client will be pretty happy with that, rather than see a heap of weeds come up and the excuse is, oh, sorry, can't come out the weather. Or you said, oh, you're going to come out. Yes, but I can't because of the weather situation. So they're definitely pre-emergent. There's the argument for it, even though we don't have one in our range, but I highly do recommend them.
And that's what I like about this. I'll put this at the beginning of the podcast, but you guys are now a sponsor of the podcast, and one of the main reasons why is I knew we could do episodes like this, and we would talk about your competitors without being detrimental or rude to them, because and that's the kind of helpful attitude that we want on the podcast, and I wouldn't have been able to make this sort of content with somebody who didn't have that attitude. So people, go support Colin Campbell's if you are going to go buy a product and you're choosing up between one of theirs and somebody else. Support them because they're supporting us, and they're not making some pushy hard sell here. It's taken us an hour to get into this podcast to even mention it, other than the fact that I'm going to put it in the description and put it at the beginning. But that's why we wanted to work with you guys. We reached out, we said we'd love to work with you guys this this coming season. But it is true, back on the technical side of it, that pre-emergence, they're absolute winners. Now, there's two things that we've got to start talking about before this podcast gets so long, and we are going to do more of these, people. So if you do have questions on fungicides, insecticides, we can get into all sorts of stuff. Nadim's going to be...
If people send them through beforehand, that'd be good. Like I've got things to talk about, but if there's something specific anyone wants to know about, email them over to Luke, and we'll address them in the podcast. We'll make sure we get them done early so everyone knows about them.
The number one way, I reckon, the best place to put them would be in the comments of either the YouTube or the Spotify, and the reason is that then it's in one location, and in a month's time or two we can come back. And if you email Nadeem and then you email me, you send a Facebook message or whatever, I'm going to lose them. So put them in that one space. But the essentially what we're going to do this year is we're going to have a lot more podcasts like this to try and be as helpful as possible. And we could probably do 3 or 4 episodes just on weed sprays like this. But hopefully to get a few bucks. Now, surfactants, some really need it, some not so much. Yep. Some maybe already have a surfactant mixed in with the formulation. So how do we know which ones? Does it say on the label? Is it different scenarios require one, others don't? How do we know about that?
Yeah. So you might get varying opinions in regards to this. I'm a big advocate of putting a surfactant in with most herbicides. So the group 2 herbicides that we spoke about, 100% surfactant, non-negotiable. You've got to do it.
So that's the Lonrose, the
Lonro,
Monument,
Sempra, Tempra,
yep.
Tempra, probably one called Wempra too. All of those. Negate Coliseum. All of those. Recondo, that's the other one as well. So all of those definitely need a surfactant. Non-ionic. You can't go wrong with the non-ionic. And you'll see that on the label. So pretty much they're more like, even if it's just sort of a wetter spreader type product, because a lot of the times with those ones, they don't have anything built in. They don't bind. They don't stick very well, the active ingredients. So you need something to help aid it. And especially when you're going for like gifford grass, nut grass, winter grass. It's like they've got sort of fairly smooth leaves. So the spray's going to drop off. You'll see it. Like if you actually look at your sprays or you put indicator in like a True Blue, you actually see the spray drop off. So you want it to stick on there. So a non-ionic. So there's your Wetter 600, Agril, BS 1000, all of those, they'll work. If you want to get into more better surfactants, I'd probably look at more something like, there's one called Wet Out, which is really good, which really does more stick to the surface, and Oraturf, which sticks to the surface. There are other ones like Pulse and another one called Radar, but they sort of will get into the plant and rip the cuticle of the plant and get the herbicide to push in, which sounds really good, but it can do some damage with ripping in the cuticle of the plant. So it may cause a little bit of burn that way. Because a lot of the herbicides, they'll do a good job of what they do, but you just want them to just stay on there and allow them.
You don't want them beating off and rolling off.
Yeah, that's it. And you just want it to stay on there.
I will also just say, people, they are so cheap. So cheap. It's almost free. I think you might be talking about, so for like a Wetter 600, it'd be maybe $30 for a litre, but you need less than 1 mil for every litre that you mix up. I can't remember what it is, but it's almost like impossible to even measure those small amounts when you're just doing a 15-litre knapsack. So
that's it. And with the thing is, like we're talking about an arsenal, that's only one product you need for that. The only caveat I'll mention, I'll get a bit more technical. Oh, sorry, I've got the phone not on silent. Is that if you use any quinclorac based product like a Drive or a Steer or Quinstar, so something like that, because that's dust clover and also kikuyu control. Some people might use that out there. The best surfactant is a methylated seed oil. There's been umpteen research. I was talking to Dr. Scott McElroy from Auburn University. We were talking about surfactants, and he said, methylated seed oil is one you put with those products. So if you don't know what they are, you can Google them. There's a few there. Everyone sort of will sell a version of it, so that is one you can definitely look at if you want to go very specific. But something like a Weta 600 or Agril. Agril was, I think, one of the original ones, the Syngenta product there. You can pick that up, 5 litres. You can pick the Weta up, a litre worth. Yeah, definitely invest into those products for that group. Now, the other products, some have got built-in surfactants like Stadium, Spearhead, Estate is the other one we didn't mention there. They've got one built in, but for the harder to kill ones, again, those hairy, waxy ones, put it in there. Again, you're going in and doing a spray, don't do 90% of the job. You want it 100% of the job. Put it in there, no matter what. Unless there's something specific on the label that says do not apply a surfactant with these products, then don't do it. But the caveat is always read the label first.
My caveat is put your surfactant in towards the end of filling up your bottle, because if you're like me and I just go, you can't measure out how small it's usually. You put a little bit too much in, and it is going to froth up and bubble everywhere, and it's so annoying. So,
yes, you can get anti-foam though.
Well, mate, look, okay. I'm not. One, I wasn't aware of that. So maybe I need to do that. Two, I'm trying to reduce space on my ute.
I know that's fine. Yeah, and again, you use very tiny. Yeah, just make sure you use the right amount, and 100% put that in last. Then in the tank mixing procedure, we always say put the surfactant in last.
Let's talk quickly about quinclorac. To me, more people need to know about this if you're in the residential space. Many years ago, I actually called you up and I said, you should do this in a small formulation, And the reason is that it's very expensive to buy. I think 4 litres is about the minimum you can get, unless I'm out of date on that.
You can get steer from turf culture in a kilo size, but it is... I think because it's a higher concentrate, it's a 750 gram per kilo, if I remember correctly, and it's only a kilo a hectare or just over a kilo a hectare. So you're pretty much buying a hectare worth no matter what. That's what it comes down to.
Well, it's hundreds. It's in the hundreds.
But in terms of what it does a kilo, but you are looking at, $400 or $500 outlay, which is quite expensive.
So the reason why some should consider it is it does suppress kikuyu in couch lawns, and we have had success. And you might say, well, there's other products like Monument that will do that too, but Monument is not legal to use in the home garden.
Yes.
And so Drive, Quinstar, Steer, these quinclorac groupings. Now, this is the same, if I remember correctly, it's a group 4.
Yes, it is,
I think, so it's the same as the MCPA that we've talked about before, dicamba. But yes, it does work. Now, I would caveat that by saying you do need to do multiple applications.
Yes.
And if it's like really, really bad with kikuyu, good luck. But if you find some small little bits coming through and you have that, we have it in our arsenal. It's one of the ones that we buy, and we're ready to cough up that money, because if someone's got a couch lawn and a little bit of kikuyu starts sticking through, we're not doing anything illegal by using Monument. We are covering that, and it works.
Yeah.
And because of that mode of action is quite quick to see, like a week, and you're seeing some discoloration, even less sometimes. But you just got to be consistent with it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's a great one to put in there in the arsenal. You can tank mix it with other products as well if you're doing other sprays for other broadleaf weeds. It does do a little bit of broadleaf weed, not a huge amount, but definitely, if you want to go, it is very strong. And again, these are the differences between those group 4s, where I don't know any other group 4 actives will kill kikuyu and that. So it's very unique in that way. But it's an awesome product, the quinclorac.
What are the toughest weeds? We've talked about the waxy ones, a few others. Yeah. What are some of the toughest weeds to kill?
Wintergrass, definitely. Mm-hmm. Oxalis used to be, but now with sort of the dicambas getting used, and also your estate bone arrow, diflufenican active ingredient ones becoming a lot easier. spurge, fleabane, especially your way, fleabane. They're quite hard, especially with fleabane, especially for the Western Australian listeners going. It's, again, that one, spray early. Spray it early, don't spray it late. Once you see it, spray it, because once it gets established, and there's a lot of problems people are having with fleabane, once it gets, and there are different types of fleabane, especially in WA over there, and I'm speaking directly for the Western Australian guys, spray it early, and you might need the multiple applications there. Spurge is always a bit of an issue. Carrot weed comes up, kaki weed. Kaki weed one is definitely, you need, like on our Tricombi does it, but you do need 2 to 3 applications of it for it to work. Same with carrot weed as well. And this is the thing, it's like there's so many weeds. Crow's foot is a hard one as well. Again, because usually the crow's foot, people are spraying in the height of summer, not earlier when it just starts emerging. So again, it all comes to that, down to that timing. So your easy weeds are like clover, bindi, they're pretty easy. It's pretty much any grass weeds. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think with fleabane, we've found that the ones with the diflufinicin seem to work really well. Now, we've also found that if you're cutting it really quite low, it does sort of grow out from the base sometimes. But if you do cut it quite low, sometimes that can just get on top of it if it's soon enough. You're a small little plant, not an established plant. But that is one of the ones, and oxalis as well is one of the ones that's pretty tough to get. At least in my experience, but I guess it's different around the country. Certain climates like crowsfoot grass and stuff, that's probably doing more in Queensland.
Yeah, more Queensland where you see the crowsfoot. That's up. I look at for the resistance purposes, the POA in New South Wales and Victoria is the equivalent of sedge and crowsfoot grass in Queensland.
Right.
I
find so okay. Let's try and wrap up some of these thoughts here a little bit. Because we're getting into this time-wise, and we have plenty of opportunity to come back on and do some more. But I think if we're starting from, we're talking to contractors, we're starting from a base, you need to have an arsenal of products that have different active ingredients, and understand that, hey, if there's certain ones in your areas, like the crowsfoot grass, maybe if you're in certain parts of Queensland, or fleabane if you're in WA, you need to have something that's good for that. When you have those actives, that allows you, and that knowledge that we're talking about, it allows you to separate yourself just a little bit, from the competition. A little bit of extra knowledge helps with a lot when it comes to some of these conversations you're going to have in person or via email. And then having that arsenal means that you're a more helpful person. You can charge a little bit more money, and there is a return on investment. What if someone's got more questions that they want to ask? Can they reach out to you, Nadeem?
100%. No problems. And one thing I will say about that is like going, because this podcast goes, well, besides all over the world, but we're more talking about Australia. It's like going, if you're in Queensland, it's like going, those bigger weeds that you deal with, you know your clients, you see them and you're trying to build it up. But going, you go, hey, look, I know my client's got crowsfoot, a big issue. Okay, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to buy a couple more products than normally I'd buy, but I'm going to be able to tackle crowsfoot for him and offer that service. The guys down in Victoria might be, I'm going to specialise more in, I'll specialise all weed, but I'm going to work on your POA. Fleabane over in West Australia, or summer grass issues here in New South Wales. So if your clientele or your area has certain weeds there, it's like going, we can deal with this problem. There's going to be the other weeds there, simple as that. But it's like going, these are the weeds, you see advertising, these are the weeds you've got to look for now, but your clients. So, look, I can deal with this problem. This is what it costs you. And you can do a bit of a package for them as well. And if you look at it going, okay, we're going to go, we're going to go crowsfoot, for instance. Yep. Okay, I'm going to do pre-emergent. I'm going to do some post-emergent, and I'm going to use about 2 or 3 different products for all of this. But in that as well, you'll definitely have nutgrass, mullen bimby, cooch control out of that, and we'll make sure we get rid of your broadleaf weeds at the same time, and we'll get your POA as well. Because those extra products that you're going to buy are pretty much going to do all those weeds. So you're talking about 1 or 2 weeds that you specialise in, but you're really going to cover about 30 or 40 different weeds. But you're giving so much more better value to your client there. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Now with the last thing I want to talk about is fertilizers.
Yep.
Now we just have to preface this by saying you always have to jar test.
Yes.
However, it is common knowledge that certain ones are not so good at mixing. And this, to me, is the Achilles heel of the bow and arrow stadium spearhead grouping is I've not had success with mixing that with products. I think you could probably put a urea in it, but if you're doing liquid stuff, a lot of guys, they're doing a bit of a brew. They might be doing a multiple hit sort of thing. And for me, it's really important for us to be able to do that, which is why we use Lonro so much, because it does mix well with the sort of iron, nitrogen, common liquid fertilizers that you've got. How does Sports Ground go with mixing? Yeah,
it does mix pretty well. It can sometimes accelerate it, sometimes a herbicide with the fertilizer. But you can do some, but usually you're not doing a sort of high amount of fertilizer at that time. You don't tend to need to do a high amount of fertilizer there. So yeah, definitely jar test. If you're not sure, because the other side of it is water quality plays a role. So, and it's a water quality in different parts of Australia. You might say, oh yeah, I fill up with town water from the tap water. Yes, it's drinkable, but the water quality with herbicide, that might be a little bit different, or it's bore water, dam water. Give it a test beforehand. Before you go out and do all these mixes and go, and the thing is I can mix these things. It's, I don't know what fertilizer you're using. Go and test it out on some areas. That's where your lawn comes in great for testing. Just do a couple of strips with the different products and the fertilizer at the rates you want to do it at. That'll be my best suggestion, because it is hard when we're talking about fertilizer, because the quality varies within fertilizers. I've seen some in turf and in ag going, they're not actually what they say on the label. Sort of the fly-by-night times, and people have used them and they don't mix that well. So a lot of things you can mix, but just try it out in the jar test. But even just do a spray on your own with yourself, on your lawn, just to test it out.
Well, yeah, on a personal note, I've got some Sports Ground now, which is one of your products, and I'm thinking of using. I'm just going to trial. You're sending me a trial with. We're going to do some other stuff behind the scenes, because you might be coming up with a new product soon. But this Lonro sort of Sports Ground, that would be 2 active ingredients. Multiple active ingredients, but 2 modes of action. And if it does mix with the liquid fertilizers, we want to, if we're spraying for our clients, because we're doing the full package, right? Any opportunity through winter to put down a liquid fertilizer is something we want to take if we can. And if I can cover a few more bases, anyway, I'll try it out. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But mate, look, that's a lot of information for an hour and a half or so. Like I said, people, I'm going to put this into an article, and the article will be out when this is out. It'll be linked in the description. If you like what you're hearing and you have other questions, write them in the comments on either Spotify or YouTube. We will try and address them in a future podcast. And if you want to support a local business that's helping us out and helping you out, then go buy Colin Campbell Chemical Products. Lonro is the one we've talked about enough. Yep. I've slammed it a million times. Also, remember, we reached out to these guys because we actually like them and we actually like the products. So this isn't some sort of... we're trying our best here with our sponsorships to have them be organic things we really like. So, anything else we should say before we sign off?
The only thing, I'm happy to have a chat to people and the likes like that. As I said, the one that I was talking about, the winter grass and the thatch and stuff like that, he bought one of our products, which is the Amgrow Winter Grass Killer, which is with Polcheck. I spent over an hour on the phone to him for just that little bottle. I'm happy to do that. Look, sometimes I'm like, I will get back to you. So just give me a call. More than happy to send me an email, hit me up on social media. More than happy to help. Any questions? Either our product, our competitor products, doesn't matter, because in the end, it's like going, you've got a job to do, I've got a job to do. If I can help you with that little bit, it's happy days.
And if any of you thought this wasn't nerdy and detailed enough, go listen to Behind the Turf, Nadeem's podcast. It's on Spotify. Go find that. And everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next podcast.
Thank you, everyone.